Welcome to Scrunchy Time. I'm Nicole Hegstead, your fertility advocate. After 6 years of infertility and 3 miscarriages, I decided that I needed to become the advocate for my own body. If you're exhausted from struggling to get pregnant and want to know more about how I can help, check out my website at www.nicolehegstead.com.
And I'm Bee Wild, speaking up for children in a world where mental and physical health of the next generation is being disregarded. I'm here to dish out the tough love truths that we need to wake up to as parents and Christians. If you're fed up with mixed opinions and ready to advocate for your own child, check out my website at www.thebewildlife.com.
Put your hair up and pay attention while we discuss today's hottest topics concerning female hormones and healthy kiddos.
We aren't silky.
We aren't crunchy. We're scrunchy.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button.
And a special thank you to those who make this financially possible. To support this podcast, please follow the link in our description.
Hello, and welcome back to Scrunchy Time. So today it's just me. Bridget is not here today. She had another function to get to, but I'm interviewing a good friend of mine, Hannah Fellows. She's been on the podcast before, so I'm sure you recognize her name and or face if you're watching on YouTube. So today Hannah is going to be sharing some fun news with us, and if you have followed her on Instagram at all or Facebook, then you know she is expecting a baby, and she's just going to be sharing her story and how, I guess, my services helped get her to the point where she's at. So I'll let you take it away with your whole story here.
All right. Great to be back again. Obviously, always so much fun getting to do these podcasts and talk, and just it's just such a great platform, and yeah, hopefully get to do more in the future because this is so much fun. But yeah, I am currently 20 weeks pregnant. We just had the 20-week anatomy scan and ultrasound, whatever you want to call it. People call it different things. But background story is that I had my first pregnancy when he was born in February 2016. And we waited a while. It was a perfectly wonderful pregnancy. No complications whatsoever. Everything was great. And then we waited a little while to try to get pregnant again. And about a year, almost 2 years later, I got pregnant again, and that was my first miscarriage. I miscarried at 12 weeks, and that was obviously completely devastating. We've talked about my grief journey before, and I've written a lot about that. And it kick-started a lot for me as far as trying to figure out what was going on with my body, sorting through so many different emotional things that were going on, and just really like digging in and seeing what all was going on, what was causing these issues. And after that miscarriage, it took me quite a while to get pregnant again, and just really struggled with that. And in last May, I finally got a positive pregnancy test and lost that baby about a week later. So that was about a 6-week miscarriage. Very different from the first one, but also just as devastating, very discouraging, more discouraging than emotionally traumatic, simply because I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Now, that being said, I didn't do any, of the typical like fertility testing or anything like that. I was doing a lot of research on my own, working with a very holistically based midwife and a very holistically based chiropractor, and then of course Nicole, and just sorting through so many different things. And then finally this past January, I was surprised with this pregnancy, and have been able to keep this one. And we can obviously go into all the things that I've been doing to keep this pregnancy, which has been a lot of things. So yeah, that's basically the in a nutshell. That is my pregnancy history up to now. So
what are some of the things that you did along the way over that 2-year journey? And the reason I ask that is because a lot of times I don't think it's like that last I don't necessarily think it's the one thing at the end that you did that just like got you pregnant, even though it does. But like, there's a lot of things that you change throughout your lifestyle that affects that end positive pregnancy test, you know?
Right. Yeah. So there were so many things that led up to finally being able to get pregnant and keep this pregnancy. Um, I dug into, and this is mostly where Nicole comes in, is that we did so many. I honestly feel like they were therapy sessions. Like we started talking more heavily. I mean, most of you probably know we've known each other for what now, 11 years ish.
Yeah.
And it's been this very kind of like back and forth, off and on friendship where sometimes we talk once a year, sometimes we talk every day. Like, it's all this crazy thing. So now I'm trying to remember about when we started using Voxer and, you know, getting more in contact more often, more regularly. Maybe
2 years ago.
about 2 years ago. Yeah. Yep. And it was very shortly after my miscarriage, because I really started looking to you for more information and things like that, and we started connecting more on that. And so within that space of 2 years, we started talking about things with my relationship with food, and I realized how much of a source of anxiety that was. And we were starting to talk about things relating to intuitive eating and digging into so many deep levels of things that even they were based in my relationship with food, but had literally nothing to do with food.
Mm-hmm.
It was all of these anxious, horrible things about myself that I thought that I put onto food, or, I mean, so many different things. And also, I suppose I should share a little bit of background with that, was that I had come off of probably about a 10-year major elimination diet experiment trying to find a cause and cure for some seizures that I was having. Oh my gosh, there's so much to that as well. Like, I thought that food was causing it, and it turned out it was not food at all, and that it was totally situationally based, and it was anxiety based, and yeah, it was not what I thought it was. And so I was coming off of this huge lifestyle of very restrictive food rules and guilt and shame and horror towards like true terror towards anything outside of my little tiny bubble of what I thought was safe. So starting to explore that and exploring my feelings toward things, you know, regarding my relationship with food and my relationship with how it affected my relationships with people and everything. And it was all this huge connection. And Nicole really like walked me through like so many things. And our Enneagram types are so different that, you know, she could objectively, you know, come to me with questions, and I could, you know, pour out all of my drama and emotion and feelings, and she could like sort them all out into neat little piles. And it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And then, of course, she would, you know, okay, I know you're a 4, so I'll let you have your little mess of feelings right now. And then sort them out when I was ready. It was great. It was just what I needed. Very like, she would see things that I wouldn't see, and say things that I couldn't understand myself. So it was very good. And
I'm going to interject there too. I almost feel like the 4 and the 1 are almost the most opposite of the Enneagram. And
yes.
And I told so many people how like amazing a grief counselor you are, because you do the opposite for me. Like, I have these files where everything has to follow the rules, and you're like, honey, just let it go. And so like,
feel awesome. Your feelings, girl, it's okay.
Exactly. So it's awesome to know that I do the opposite for you, and it just, I think we really work well together because of that. Like, we help.
It is absolutely true
of each other's issues.
That's so true. That's exactly what we do. And it has been just so great with all we've been through in the last few years, and the years before that, just been able to, gosh, just really sort through so many things.
Yeah.
So as far as emotionally, that was just probably the biggest part for me, was just being able to dig into all of that. And that I don't know, it just affected everything so incredibly. And I really credit that a lot with being able to get pregnant, because my hormones weren't as much of an issue. I always had perfectly regular periods. Like, I'm one of those people that, like, if my period is a day late, I'm like, oh heck no. My period's one day late, nope, that's not gonna work for me. Like, I'm gonna be getting on something. I'm gonna be, digging into whatever's making my period even one day late. I don't deal well with that. So, it was hard for me to look at anything that might have been hormonally even off a little bit, even though, obviously I assume there was, because when you can't get pregnant, there's something going on.
Right.
But that was the harder issue to look into, because things were so steady and so normal for me.
Right.
So I really think digging into all of that emotional baggage that I had from so many different things was so influential in just healing my body, healing my heart, and processing all of that grief and all of that misunderstanding, and learning so much about really digging into this world of miscarriage and pregnancy loss, and all of that was incredibly influential too. It helps me understand so many things that I never understood before I had experienced this loss in my life. And yeah, it was so influential and such a turning point for me. And then as far as like looking into what was going on in my physical body, I did one thing after another. I tried some different at first I tried like doing a Whole30 or doing this or doing that. And eventually I abandoned all things that had to do with any sort of diet, and focused on intuitive eating, focused on just really listening and cluing into what my body was telling me. And it turned out it was telling me very different things than what I had always thought before. So yeah, and just like really jumping into muscle testing my body for what it needed as far as supplements, even food, emotion clearing. Gosh, like there was just so much. At one point, and this is very close to my finally getting pregnant, I obviously had tried like different supplements, different regimens of different things. And I think it was October. So I got pregnant with this baby in December. I found out very early in January. So my last period was December 5th. I would have gotten pregnant around the 17th, which is kind of interesting because that was the second anniversary of my first miscarriage.
Oh, wow.
Which I didn't actually realize till just recently.
Wow.
But I thought that was kind of cool.
That is.
So the October before that, a very dear friend of mine, Emily, who basically taught me all about muscle testing, and she's sometimes crunchier than I am. It's incredible. She had made me for my birthday this big half-gallon jar of tea, like loose leaf tea. It had everything in it, and it was perfectly muscle tested for me. She's like, here you go. This is your muscle tested tea. This is just for you. It was raspberry. It was nettles. It was oat straw. It was mushroom powder and valerian and so many like fertility boosting things, but also like anxiety, emotional, adaptogenic kind of stuff. And I was on that probably daily for at least a month. Sometimes I would need it, sometimes I wouldn't. It was delicious. It was wonderful. So that was really important. I think that kind of kick-started a lot of things, healed a lot of things. So I did that, and then in November I did the Yanni pearls. Nicole had purchased me for my birthday. She, we're good friends when this is what she purchased for your friend for her birthday. Here, something to put in your vagina.
I love that
Herbs for your vagina.
I love that both of your friends got you like health things for your birthday.
I know,
That's
herbs.
So
this is what people get me.
Everybody got you tea, and I got you Yanni pearls. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
So in November, I had actually attended Emily's birth of her fourth child, and while I was there, we're very known to have our periods at the same time because we're very close. So it's not uncommon that we'll both, be on the same cycle. While I was attending her birth, I started my period, like the day, like she had her baby, I started my period, like, and I was early. It was like, it was not supposed to come, but my body was just totally like responding to what was going on in this beautiful, like, yes, here we go, we're all gonna bleed. Everybody's just gonna bleed right now. So I started that period, and I had the Yanni pearls, kind of like I was waiting for that and waiting to use those until I, was in a closer to like the next ovulation time or something is when you're supposed to do them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well that's my period, and waited a little bit, did the Yanni pearls, and then had one more period, and then I got pregnant the very next ovulation cycle.
Yes.
So I highly, highly credit the Yanni pearls to doing whatever it was that was like the last thing that needed to happen. I didn't get a huge, because if you look up on anywhere about Yanni pearls, you will see people losing like great amounts of things like blood or clots or fibroids or anything like that. I didn't have quite that reaction. It mostly just kind of, obviously this is kind of TMI, but it helped with some odor that I was having and kind of like shed a layer of skin. It was kind of minor, but I felt a lot better. Like I just, like, for so many reasons, just kind of felt better knowing I'd done it, knowing I had gone through it, and having at least some sort of, result from them. It was really neat.
Yes.
And so then I had one really good period, and it was on time, and it was maybe slightly heavier than normal, but not anything terribly noticeable. And then clearly ovulated right on time and got pregnant. So that was really cool. And I kind of hope to do them again after this baby. Like at some point, I've been told you shouldn't do them while breastfeeding, which I plan to do for hopefully like 2 years for this one. But yeah, eventually, I just think that they're so cool and so fun and so easy. And yeah, so that is one thing I definitely credit. I kind of had fun crediting. I've never been a coffee drinker. So sometime around October-ish, I had started kind of drinking some coffee. I just had felt like I've always muscle tested for coffee, like strongly muscle tested for coffee, but I don't like it. And so it's not something that I've ever had before. And so sometime around October, I was like, I really could use this. I really feel like this is good. We had gotten a French press for my birthday, which I was planning on using with loose leaf tea, but then I tried the coffee and I was like, oh, this is actually really good this way. So I was drinking coffee, and I obviously know that drinking coffee is not going to make you get pregnant, but it was one of those things that was so like unique to that period of time right before I got pregnant that was like, well, I don't know, maybe there was something in the coffee that my body needed. And that was just enough of time that it did what it needed to do. Clearly I was muscle testing for it for a reason. So
Right.
must have been something.
Well, and we tend to forget that coffee, chocolate is another one. These are both things that God created. They have nutritional benefits. They have minerals and possibly even vitamins. I mean, I know that chocolate does for sure, has a ton of antioxidants.
Right.
And what we do to coffee, I'm a caramel mocha drinker. So I add chocolate and caramel to my coffee, right? I love coffee. I'm a Lorelai Gilmore kind of coffee person. But what we do to coffee and what we do to chocolate is what makes it unhealthy for us. And we forget that, these are still natural substances that in their raw form, you got to blend the beans and brew them and all of that. But just straight coffee, just straight cocoa, like there's nothing wrong with these things. And we tend to forget that in our current age because of what we do to the things,
Yeah.
So
And
Yeah.
it's just like so many different things. There's just so many misconceptions. Basically what you just said, we've done so many things to it that now everyone thinks it's unhealthy.
Mhm.
We take a tiny bit of coffee and slather it in caramel and chocolate and be like, oh crap, now this is unhealthy. We've
Right.
done the same thing. Very interestingly, kind of a side note, but a dear friend of mine is going through a very rough pregnancy right now, and she's going through um, what is called the brewer diet. I don't know exactly when it was started, but this doctor, I believe, has created this. I'm assuming it's from quite a while ago, because it feels like older information when you read through it. It's like, there's nobody who would say this right now. Like, this is not normal to talk about what a pregnant woman should be eating right now. Like, this is not what normal people today say about what a pregnant woman should be eating.
Yeah.
But this guy came up with this diet to help specifically women who are struggling with like small babies,
Mhm.
or anything with like preeclampsia, or anything like abnormal. This helps to just nourish and build the baby, build the blood supply, build all of the things, anything that has to do with like a complicated pregnancy. And one of the things that they really recommended was salt.
Mm.
They encourage the pregnant mamas to, put salt on your food, put it in your water, put it on your tongue and let it melt. And they were saying how, interestingly enough, when people started wanting to avoid salt back in like the 50s and 60s, they were telling pregnant women, of course it was like a taboo to gain weight while you're pregnant. You've got to stay nice and skinny. Don't gain more than like 15 pounds, 20 pounds. That's just absolutely forbidden. Don't do that. I
Mhm.
mean, they would have doctors yelling at them, like literally yelling at them for gaining 5 pounds in their
Yeah.
pregnancy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they would tell them was, don't eat any salt, because it will make you, or whatever it makes you do, retain water. I don't know. It's going to make you gain weight. Apparently, salt makes you gain weight. So, but what they noticed was, as they told more and more women that, they started seeing more and more complications. They started seeing this huge uptick in preeclampsia. They started seeing this huge uptick in the need for C-sections. And they never connected it, obviously, till recently. They were like, hey, you told everybody not to eat salt, and then they all had complications. So we still see people talking about salt in this way now, especially older generation. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm eating too much salt. They freak out over that. But it's still such a prevalent thing
Mm.
that things like salt, things like fat,
Yeah.
things like carbs, these are bad things. They automatically are just bad. So you
Mhm.
shouldn't eat them, because it'll make you unhealthy. It'll make you gain weight. It'll make you whatever. But it's more what we've done to these things. It's more the misconceptions, or the what do I want to say? Societal expectations that force these types of food into being a bad thing. Why
Right.
did they tell women? Why did they tell women to not eat salt?
Mhm.
Because they've gained weight.
Right.
Because it was against the societal expectation to gain weight. It had nothing to do with whether it was healthy or unhealthy. They had no proof that it was gonna, clog their arteries or something. It was simply a societal expectation. So we've taken that, and over 50, 60 years, it has remained this thing, and it has turned into, well, we don't eat salt because it's bad for our hearts or cholesterol. We've come up with some healthful reason
Mhm.
to not eat certain things, when really its basis was in some sort of societal expectation that was put on particularly women. So, not to
It's a
sound
lot
like a
like
flaming feminist there, but you know.
it's a lot like the hysterectomy. The
Yeah.
hysterectomy began because women were acting hysterical, and they believed that emotion came from the ovaries. And so a woman who acted hysterical, they would give a hysterectomy to. And that's why it's called a hysterectomy, is because of
Yeah.
hysterical. I learned that recently, and it honestly really makes me angry. Like,
Right?
it's like,
Right?
oh, so we're just going to remove this vital female organ because I have an opinion about something. Okay, that sounds logical. Again, I sound like a feminist. I'm just going to start owning it. I probably am a feminist. Like, anybody that I know who's anti-feminist would call me a feminist at this
Oh
point.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I just, like,
Yes. Yes.
anyway.
Yeah.
So now that you are pregnant and achieved that positive test, what are some of the things you've been doing to maintain pregnancy? Because obviously you've had the two losses, and I know our biggest worry as soon as you got a positive was like, okay, like, it almost, and actually I want to say this for listeners out there as well, for women who may be struggling with the same thing. That positive test was almost, we were happy about the positive, but it wasn't so much a yay, you're pregnant, as a, okay, what do we do to make sure that this sticks? Let's not do another miscarriage. And I just want to throw that out there for other women who, again, might be struggling with the same thoughts of, I'm almost scared to get pregnant again because I don't want to go through another. I'd almost rather not get pregnant. And I've been there as well. I'd almost rather not get pregnant at this point than have to face another miscarriage. And so what are some of the things you've done, but also just normalizing those emotions for women who might also be going through the same things?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I one of the few posts I've done recently on my Instagram touched on this very matter, and I came right out and I said, when I got that positive test, I was 3 days late at my period, going, crap, why is my period late? Complaining to Emily, and she finally was just like, do you have a test in your closet? Just take it. I think she was sick of hearing me talk about it, because I was just complaining about my period being late. And she's like, oh my gosh, just take this stupid test. It'll be fine. And so I did, and it was a super light positive, which a light positive at 3 days late is not a horrible thing, but it's not the best thing. Like, you want to see those dark lines.
Mm-hmm.
And it was super light, and I come right out and I say, I was not happy.
Mm-hmm.
I was not in tears and crying and joyful over finally achieving a pregnancy. It was not a happy moment for me. It was pure panic. It was, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What am I going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
I know what a miscarriage feels like. I know what it's like to go through that. Am I staring down this barrel again? Like, what do I have to do to keep this pregnancy? Is there anything I can do? And even if I try my hardest, am I going to end up walking that deep, dark valley of grief again? And especially once you've experienced that, you know what it's like, and you don't want to go through it.
Yeah.
You really just don't. And it's very hard to, if you get that pregnancy, and even still, I'm 20 weeks pregnant, and I still get these moments of, oh my gosh, I knew somebody that lost a baby at 21 weeks, or, gosh, we hear stillbirths all the time, somebody asked me recently, what point do you have to get to in your pregnancy to feel like you can really feel happy about it, or to feel like you don't have anything to worry about anymore? And I said, birth.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, like, until this baby is literally in my arms and I'm staring at it and it is not in my body anymore, there's not going to be a moment where I'm not holding my breath to some extent. Yes, it's gotten much less, especially now that I've seen the ultrasound, especially now that I'm feeling movement. All the things have gradually lessened, but there's always that thought in the back of my mind going, this is not guaranteed to me. This is not, who knows what is going to happen.
And even once the baby is born, like, then the baby can run out in the street. The baby could,
oh my gosh, yes.
The baby could, like, you got to watch the baby and like take care of the baby and nurture the baby. And then when they're adults, like, I know, like, I firmly am one of those people that believes once you get that positive, or once you make a baby, which happens at conception, like, you're a parent for life. And I don't think that panic ever goes away. Like, it's just a terrifying journey to be a parent,
Yeah.
And yeah, so I put that together during my last pregnancy that also ended in a miscarriage of like, okay, I just have to make it to 20 weeks. And then, it was like, okay, wait, I just have to make it to birth. And then it was like, wait, but then the baby's like out of my womb. Like it's almost safer in my womb with the danger of miscarriage. So yeah, it's a whole thing. It's a
It is
whole
a whole thing. And the older your kid gets, I mean, I have a 4-year-old right now. He's like a walking death sentence, like constantly. Like it's like, what else could you possibly do that you could possibly hurt yourself with?
Yeah.
And I mean, you go out in public, and I mean, you hear all the horror stories of people, taking children. It's like,
Yeah.
there's nothing that's safe. Nothing is safe. Truly, nothing is safe. And then I think, oh wow, if I just get him to adulthood, then everything's gonna be fine. Well, that's not guaranteed either. Then I can't watch him. Then I can't protect him. Now he's out in the world doing whatever he wants.
Making his own decisions.
It just doesn't end. It doesn't end. So mostly that is all just, we have to learn how to just trust and have peace somewhere. We got to find peace somewhere and work on our anxiety and not let that consume us, because there's just so much we cannot control, and there's so much that we can work our hardest and do our best, but ultimately we live in this fallen world where people die and bad things happen, and we just have to know that we're doing all we can, and God's grace is sufficient, and that's all we can hold on to. So that is what we went through with this pregnancy. I found out, I believe it was a Sunday afternoon or morning. It was January 5th. I know that much. Whatever day January 5th was. And got that test, and got the positive test, and immediately was going through all of the things to do with Emily, and had messaged Nicole and was like, hey, guess what? I got a positive pregnancy positive test. What should I do? What do I got to do? And like you said, we weren't happy about it. It was this kind of like, we were both kind of crying on Voxer, and like, oh, what do we do? What do we say? Can't really say congratulations yet because we know we're freaked out about this, but let's try to be hopeful, but let's come up with a game plan here. And so the very next day we decided that I definitely needed to do progesterone, which we had kind of known before. I had one blood test done before or after my first miscarriage, and obviously the progesterone was low on that. Like, we could have just known that.
Right.
But we kind of just assumed that it's one of those things that you assume. Progesterone is very important for making and keeping babies. If you can't make and keep babies, go to progesterone. Also, I feel like I should put a disclaimer out. None of what I am about to say is, I'm not a doctor. I am not a herbalist. I am not a professional. I am just someone who has done her own research, has had the support of wonderful people telling me, yes, this is a good thing to do. People who are actually professionals in a medical field. I always talk to someone. Don't just be doing your own research and saying, you heard this girl on the podcast saying you need to take progesterone, you need to take these 6 supplements. This worked for me and my particular body. It may not work for you, but it may work for you. Take this information and go talk to someone professionally. That is the disclaimer.
I can actually say the same thing at the end. So this is actually a good point to say for me too. Even if you are a client of mine, I may not recommend the same things that Hannah got. This is like, I always say, I dig in deep to what's going on with you and your story and your background. I mean, Hannah has just shared so much with us about her eating history and her lifestyle and everything that has been going on. And I mean, basically I coached you for 2 years through this. So like, I would never even talk to someone on an introduction call and say, okay, you need to be on progesterone. Like, clearly this is what you need. Like, this is something we dig into with each client and really focus in on. And I love the fact that you have your own midwife and chiropractor, and we were able to bounce all this stuff off of multiple people, and so it's a whole thing. So don't take this story and say, okay, this is clearly what's going to keep me from miscarrying, or this is even what Nicole would suggest for my specific situation. Like,
Right.
we muscle tested Hannah, like we did a lot of intuitive things going on there. So yeah, there's a whole lot, but this is your story. So we're here to share Hannah's story, not necessarily your story.
Yes. And I don't want to sound like I'm like a cut above anybody, or I'm standing up on some sort of high horse or anything, but in truth, I'm 30 years old. This has been my life.
Mm-hmm.
My mother is a health guru, and I mean, from day one, she was a kind of first generation. Like, she did a lot of stuff that people were, just starting to do, and pass this all along to me. So I'm this second generation, like, crunchy health nut person. Like, this has been my life. I know a lot of people who struggle with fertility, or suddenly find themselves in a place like this, will start to look towards more of a crunchy lifestyle, or a holistic method, because other methods fail, or because they're not getting the answers, or they can't afford IVF, or all these different things. Like, this is a place people will turn, and so it can be hard to sort through all this information coming from people like me who've been in this for so long. I mean, it's so second nature for me to turn towards holistic things for anything.
Yes.
I have all of the books. I have years of just life knowledge. I may not have some sort of degree. I may not have taken classes. I just have personal research and life behind me,
Mm-hmm.
which may not mean a lot to people, but it is working for me in my specific body and journey and family and situation. And so learn from me. Don't take what I say, easily, or like, don't take it for granted, or take it for, that's not what I'm trying to say. What am I trying to say?
Don't just take what you're saying and run with it and think.
Yes, don't take what I'm saying and run.
Yeah.
Pregnancy brain.
Yeah.
Let's just claim that. Yeah, don't take it and run with it and just start, taking all the herbs for no reason, without talking to someone and knowing you're doing the right thing for you.
Yes.
So, all that being said, the very next day after finding out that I had gotten that positive test, I was obviously very concerned that it was so light. That was my main concern, that it was a very light positive. Mm-hmm. Almost undetectable, like it was so light. Mm-hmm. And for me, in the past, with my second miscarriage, that meant for me that I'd probably already lost the baby, or was on my way to losing it. And no matter what I did, I wasn't going to be able to save it. With that second miscarriage, that was the case. It never got darker, and I ultimately miscarried. So with this one starting out so light, it was just like total freak out moment. And we decided that I really needed to do the progesterone. I use a brand called Bezwecken. It's available on Amazon, or my chiropractor sells it. It is probably the highest quality, best progesterone you can possibly get, without like going and getting a prescription or something. So I took that, and I went to the chiropractor, and I knew they sold it, so I got that. I had texted my midwife, and she recommended me taking a brand called Standard Process. Their Utrophin, which is a uterine strengthening supplement, and their vitamin E supplement as well, which is great for the uterus, great for the cervix, great for everything. Also great for your skin. I noticed my skin has been just incredible since taking it, so that's a small perk. So I went and got those supplements. I had a prenatal vitamin from Emerald Labs in my closet, so I was gonna, just take that. Taking extra folate. I also have the MTHFR gene mutation, so I always take that into consideration when choosing my vitamins and things. And so I had extra folate, B12, I mean, anything you can think of. I had also been reading about and reading from fertility doctors, more holistically minded ones, that taking a low dose aspirin, like a baby aspirin, I think it's 81 milligrams or something like that. So whatever the low dose is, taking that really helped with blood flow. And there's this one specific fertility doctor who swears by this combination of progesterone and low dose aspirin for people with repeat miscarriages or histories of infertility or anything like that. Absolutely swears by it. So I asked my chiropractor, asked my midwife. I said, "Do you think this is a good idea?" They were like, "Both, yes, absolutely, do that." And so I just started on this regimen of that. With the progesterone, I decided that it would be better and more efficient for me to put drops of it into gel capsules and insert it vaginally, because I had tried it using it before, just putting it on my wrists or on my stomach, and it was clearly not as effective for me since I had lost babies and was not getting pregnant. So we just went right to the source and did that, rather high doses of that for the first week or so. Muscle tested for what I needed, obviously, always do that. And just did this whole regimen really strongly for a week, and then tested again. And the test was significantly darker, which I was really happy about. And at that point, I started to be like, okay, this could work.
Yeah.
This could actually work. And so we kept doing it. I believe I tested like another week or two after that, and got this perfectly strong, perfectly dark test. And at that point, I was like, okay, I think we're okay. I think we might be okay here. And by the time I was about 8.5 weeks, I was confident enough to tell our families, to tell, our close immediate families, brothers, sisters, and parents. So for me to get to that point with this pregnancy was amazing. To be comfortable and confident enough telling them meant that it was really real to me. And I still had so many reservations and had a hard time explaining that to people. There was my one friend, was asking me how, basically saying it would be helpful to be happier about this, or to be more hopeful, or it was hard for her to understand why I couldn't just be, ecstatic about this in the moment. And it really took a lot of sorting through emotionally to be like, okay, well, there's lots of reasons why I'm having a hard time being happy about this right now, because of my history. I know I could be staring down the barrel of miscarriage right now.
Right.
Still, like, especially, before 12 weeks, but once I hit 12 weeks, yes, a lot of things really started dissipating for me. A lot of those emotions started dissipating because I got past that point where I had suffered the horrible traumatic miscarriage the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. Did it make it go away all together? No, it didn't. There was still so much. But every week, every milestone, every time I would feel something new or something would happen, it brought more and more comfort. And I have obviously continued that supplemental and progesterone regimen. I'm on lower doses now, and everything is growing fine and doing great. And it really worked. And at my last midwife appointment, we were really talking about all the things that I was doing and everything, and just how good it was going. And I just said, it's so validating when something you believe should work finally does.
Yes.
Like, it actually worked. Like, we have so many people, when they look at our holistic lifestyle, with the fact that I didn't choose the IVF route, and I did choose the progesterone in my vagina route. Like, I chose this completely kind of off the wall route that people don't normally think to take, and it actually worked. It's so incredibly validating to have it actually work and be able to say, I'm living proof right now that this can happen, this can work. you, as Nicole has been posting on Instagram, you can get pregnant naturally. It does work.
Yes.
There are success stories. Sometimes it's harder. You have to do so much personal research. You have to fight for yourself. You have to think for yourself. It's not easy. This is not easy. Living like this is not easy, because there's pushback. There's haters and people that just think you're just one of those crazy people. But when it works, it's like, yes.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Absolutely.
I knew I was doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
And my hormones are still good and intact.
Exactly. And that's what I go back to with the IVF and the fertility treatments that we face. It not only did this work, and yeah, it took you 2 years, and yes, you lost 2 babies along the way, but with IVF, you would have lost more than 2 babies. Like, most women get at least 3 embryos out of an IVF cycle. Like, that's 3 babies that you've lost right there. And, it takes multiple cycles, and it takes multiple years for some of these women, plus $20,000 a pop. So, you're not even in debt through this whole process, like, you're able to afford it. So yeah, and it is extremely validating. It actually worked. And you are my 4th client to get pregnant, and so far carried a term. The other 3 have had their babies, but to see so many people that I'm coaching get pregnant and carry to term, and just be like, okay, clearly, the first couple clients I got, I'm not going to lie, it was like, I don't know that I know what I'm doing. Like, it's one of those things, and you can't guarantee pregnancy, right? I'm not God. Like, I can't guarantee, oh, this is going to work and you are going to have a baby and carry to term. Like, I'm not in charge of life. So there is that aspect of, okay, I know the answers, but do I really know there's self-doubt there, and one by one, each of my clients has gotten pregnant and carried to term. And it's been just, like you said, extremely validating to be like, yes, I do have the right answers. This is the answer to what we're doing. And
well, and there's no, you can't guarantee pregnancy. You can't guarantee life, but neither can a doctor. Neither can fertility treatments. It's a shot in the dark. It's a leap of faith. No matter which way you go, like, if you choose to go the traditional medical fertility route, obviously that's your personal choice, and we're not here to judge you for the personal choices that you make. And hopefully we don't come across as sounding like, well, if you don't do it the herbal route, then
right,
sucks to be you.
right.
We don't ever want to sound like that. But if you're going into something thinking, well, this is the sure thing, this is the absolute for sure way that I'm going to get pregnant and all my pain is going to be gone, know that nothing is guaranteed. Know that IVF isn't guaranteed. Know that IUI isn't guaranteed. Know that taking herbs is not guaranteed, that you're going to actually achieve what you want to achieve.
Right.
We are not in charge of life. We don't get to say what is going to happen. We just are taking what is the best choices for us, for our families, for our, and it may come down to the fact that you may not have the support that you need in your life to encourage you to take an herbal route. You may not have a support if you want to do things like IVF and IUI and things like that. You may not have support there either. So you may be stuck in between a rock and a hard place looking for whatever you need to do. Like I said, we're not here to judge your choices.
Right.
We're just here to share what worked for us.
Yeah.
This worked for us. This is working for other people. And if we don't share that information, you'll never know. Yeah. I would have never known to put progesterone in a capsule and stick it up my vagina. Yeah. I would have never known that had somebody not said, hey, other gals have tried this and it's actually working.
Yes.
I would had I not, followed that fertility doctor, that holistic fertility doctor from, I don't know, Iowa, or forget where she's from. And had I not been seeing her posts about take a baby aspirin, never known to ask about that. I would never have thought, hey, my midwife, is this something that you would support too? I would have never thought to ask about that.
Yeah.
This whole journey is just back and forth of sharing information, sharing things that work, just being here for each other
Yes.
and talking through all of these things.
Yes.
That is all this is about.
Absolutely.
It is not about judgment. It is not about shaming for one method or another. It is just simply a sharing of information. So
Absolutely.
that has been our goal, and I hope we have accomplished that.
Dittos. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story with my listeners. Maybe if you feel comfortable, once the baby's born and you're feeling better months down the road, we could do a birth story episode. That would be
absolutely
really fun. That would
be absolutely fun. That would be so much fun.
Yes, that would be really
I
fun.
love a good birth story.
I do too. They're amazing. Everyone is so unique and so beautiful. And yes, I agree. I have yet to hear a birth story that I'm like, oh, they just had a baby. Like, it's always like, oh my gosh, life entered the world. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yes. So see you sometime after September.
Yes. Well, thank you again for joining us today, and we'll see you back in a couple of weeks. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you want to hear more, hit that subscribe button.
And a special thank you to those who make this financially possible. To support this podcast, please follow the link in our description.
To learn more about one-on-one coaching, books, and other resources, check me out at www.nicolehagstead.com.
And check me out at thebewildlife.com.
Our intro and exit music is titled Happy Song by Pachyderm. The song is licensed under an Attribution Share Alike license.